Last fall, we dug up just over 80 pounds of potatoes from a single 20-foot row behind the house. And the year before that, same variety, same row, we barely cleared 25 pounds. The soil was the same. The seed potatoes came from the same bag. The weather was almost identical. The only thing that changed was how we watered them. And that one shift turned a row full of knobby, hollow, scabby spuds into the best potato harvest we had pulled in 40 years of gardening. And here is what is going to surprise you. The watering mistake that is almost certainly silently destroying your potato harvest right now is not underwatering. It is not overwatering either. It is something far more specific. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Most home gardeners water their potatoes the same way from the day the first sprout breaks the soil until the day they dig them in fall. They think they are being consistent. They are not. They are missing a 6-week window that decides everything, from the size of your tubers to whether they store all winter in the cellar, to whether you cut into a beautiful potato or a hollow, brown-centered mess that gets thrown to the chickens. Today, we are going to walk through exactly how we water our potatoes now, the shift that changed everything, and the specific window of time when watering matters 10 times more than it does the rest of the season. We're also going to show you how to read your last harvest like a calendar just by cutting one open. And stick around, because near the end, we have got an old market gardener's trench and jug trick from a fellow named Carl Emery up in Aroostook County, Maine, whose grandfather brought it over from Sweden in the 1920s. It delivers water directly to the tuber zone, costs almost nothing to set up, and works in any garden bed, raised bed, or row you have. So let us back up and tell you how we figured this out. Because we did not get here from reading a book. We got here from messing it up for nearly 20 years. For most of our gardening life, we grew potatoes the way our grandfather grew them on his small place in Pennsylvania, and the way most folks on our road still do. Planted in April, we hilled them up in May, and we watered them the same way we watered everything else in the garden. A little splash from the hose every other evening after supper. The plants always came up looking healthy. Big bushy green tops, some flowers in early summer, and by August, the foliage would yellow and die back. And we would dig. And every single year, the same disappointment. The yields were maybe 2 pounds per plant if we were lucky. Our grandfather pulled 4 to 5 pounds per plant, and he never had running water out at the garden. The tubers we dug up were knobby, with strange bumps and dumbbells where the spud had grown unevenly. About 1 in 3 of the bigger potatoes had a hollow inside, sometimes with a brown patch around it. Some had cracks in the skin that ran clean through, and a few were covered in those rough cork-like patches we call scab. We blamed the variety. We blamed the soil. We added more compost. We switched to certified seed potatoes that cost $45 a bag. We tried different hilling depths. None of it really moved the needle. We were throwing $30, $40 worth of seed in the ground every spring, and pulling out a harvest our grandfather would have been ashamed of. Then, 3 summers ago, we came across a bulletin from the Potato Association of America. It walked through something called tuber initiation, the moment in the plant's life cycle when the underground stems, called stolons, start swelling into the actual potatoes you are going to eat. The bulletin said something that completely reset our thinking. During tuber initiation and the 6 weeks of tuber bulking that follow, the soil moisture has to stay between 70 and 80% of field capacity. Any swing, any alternating wet and dry cycle during that window causes the cells in the center of the tuber to die. That is exactly how you get hollow heart. That is exactly how you get growth cracks. That is exactly how you get the knobby, misshapen potato that nobody wants to bring to the county fair. And this next part caught us completely off guard when we dug into it further. A fresh potato is roughly 80% water. Think about that. You are not growing a solid root vegetable. You are growing a bag of water wrapped in a skin of starch. A study out of Wageningen University in the Netherlands used MRI machines to watch tubers grow inside the soil in real time. Researchers found that potato tubers actually lose water to the plant during the daytime when the leaves are transpiring in the heat, and then refill overnight when the plant settles down. The tuber is basically a water reservoir that the plant borrows from every afternoon and pays back every night. When you let the soil dry out during tuber bulking, the plant borrows water from the tuber, but never pays it back. The cells in the center of the spud collapse. That is your hollow heart. That is your brown center. If you have been growing potatoes the way we used to, you are not failing. You are doing what almost everyone does. You just have not been told the part that actually matters. A potato plant does not need consistent water all season. It needs absolutely consistent water during one specific 6-week window, and you can be a little sloppy on either side of it. The trouble is, nearly everybody has it backward. They water steadily for the first month while they are still excited about the garden, then slack off as the season gets busy in July, just as the plant hits the most critical stage of its life. Or they water lightly all season but panic and drench the plants after a long dry spell, which, according to research published in the American Journal of Potato Research dating back to 1925, is the single fastest way to manufacture hollow heart. Our great-grandparents knew this. They watered potatoes by the moon, by the flower, by the feel of the soil 2 knuckles deep. We forgot somewhere along the way. The window starts when the plant flowers, not before. When you see those small white or purple blossoms appear on top of your potato plants, that is the plant telling you it is making tubers underground. From that moment until the foliage starts yellowing, roughly 6 to 8 weeks later, every wet to dry swing leaves a mark inside the tuber that you will not see until you cut into it in October. And this is the part that will stop you in your tracks. You can actually read your last harvest like a calendar. Cut open one of your potatoes from last year lengthwise. If you see a hollow in the center near the stem end, that watering swing happened in the first 2 weeks after flowering. If the hollow is near the bud end, the swing happened in the last 2 weeks before harvest. The tuber is a written record of every mistake. Once you know how to read it, you are never gardening blind again. But knowing the window is only half the fight. The other half is knowing exactly how to deliver water during those 6 weeks, so it actually reaches the tuber zone and stays there. And what nearly every gardener out there is doing right now, even the ones who think they are watering enough, is putting moisture in the wrong place, at the wrong depth, at the wrong time of day. So the very first habit we want you to build is something the University of Idaho Extension calls the screwdriver test. Take a long-handled screwdriver with 6 to 8 inches of shaft and push it straight down into the soil between 2 potato plants. If it slides in easily, all the way to the handle, your moisture is good. If it stops short, if you have to push hard, the soil is dry below, and your potatoes are stressed right now. If it comes out muddy, you have overwatered, and you need to back off for 2 days. Old-timers used to do this with a thin willow stick. The screwdriver is just the modern version of the same trick. A potato is a shallow-rooted plant. 90% of the root mass lives in the top 12 to 18 inches of soil, which is exactly where the tubers are forming. So when that zone dries out, the plant feels it almost immediately, and tuber growth just stops dead. When you finally water, the tuber expands fast to catch up, and the cells in the center cannot keep pace. They tear apart. That is hollow heart. That is the brown center. That is the growth crack that splits the skin right open. Stop watering a little every couple of days. Start watering a deep, slow, even soak twice a week. And during the flowering window, every 5 days like clockwork, no matter what the weather looks like. When we water a potato bed during tuber initiation, we are giving it about 1 to 1.5 inches of water across the bed, which works out to roughly 1 gallon per square foot. We run a soaker hose along the row, lay it flat on the soil, and let it trickle for about an hour. That puts moisture down to a depth of about 10 inches in most soils, which is right in the tuber zone. The plant gets a real deep drink, and the soil never gets the chance to swing dry between waterings. Just make sure the water goes to the soil, not the leaves. Wet potato leaves invite early blight, late blight, and a fungal disease called black scurf. Those are some of the fastest ways to lose a potato crop in July. Water the dirt, not the plant. And do it in the morning if you can, between 6 and 9 in the morning. The soil absorbs it before the heat of the day, and the plant goes into the hot afternoon, fully hydrated. Evening watering works, but morning is the gold standard. Now, what we have covered so far already puts you ahead of 90% of home gardeners out there. But everything from this point forward is what separates a decent harvest from a truly remarkable one. And the very next step might be the single highest leverage move in all of potato growing. But before we get into that, if you are sick of paying for toxic fertilizers, we have put together a free $0 harvest blueprint for you. It reveals 7 zero-cost fertilizers that actually outperform everything you know. and the lazy no-dig method that eliminates weeding permanently. One of our readers used the fertilizer trick inside, and his garden grew to double the size of his neighbor's. To get instant access to the blueprint and a weekly forgotten gardening hack, click the first link in the description below, or scan the QR code on the screen if you are watching on TV. Just open your camera app on your phone and then hold it against the screen. A yellow button should pop out. Alright, let us keep going because the next piece is where the real harvest gets locked in. Mulch. And we mean seriously mulch. This is the difference between watering twice a week and watering 5 times a week. And it is what buffers your soil against the wet and dry swings we have been talking about this whole time. Once your potato plants are about 10 to 12 inches tall and you have done your first hilling, lay down 4 to 6 inches of clean straw across the entire row. We use straw because it is light, it breathes, and it blocks light from reaching tubers near the surface. According to Purdue University Extension research, organic mulch cuts surface evaporation by as much as 70%. The mulched bed holds moisture for days longer than a bare bed, which means you can soak deeply twice a week, and the soil never swings dry in between. That is the whole game right there. Consistent moisture. But this is the part that almost nobody realizes. Keeping that moisture consistent during tuber initiation does something else besides preventing hollow heart. Research from Cornell University shows that adequate soil moisture during the 2 to 6 weeks after tuber initiation is one of the most effective ways to prevent common scab, those rough cork-like patches on the skin that make your potatoes look diseased. The bacterium that causes scab, Streptomyces scabies, thrives in dry soil. Keep the soil consistently moist during that critical window, and you are fighting 2 problems at once, hollow heart and scab, with the exact same fix. Once your mulch is on and your watering rhythm is dialed in, adjust as the season moves through stages, because what works in May is dead wrong in July. In the first month after planting, before the sprouts break the surface, the plant has almost no roots and does not need much water. Half an inch per week from rainfall is plenty. Once the foliage comes up and starts growing, bump it to about 3/4 of an inch per week. The moment you see flowers, switch to 1 to 1.5 inches per week, applied evenly on a strict 5-day rhythm. Run that rhythm for 6 weeks. If your variety does not flower visibly, count 6 to 8 weeks from planting and switch then. When you see the foliage start to yellow and die back, pull your watering way back just enough to keep the plant from collapsing entirely. The dry down at the end of the season helps the skin set, and that is what lets your potatoes store all winter long in the cellar without rotting. That is how our grandparents kept potatoes in barrels of sand from October clear through April. Now there is still one more piece to this that nearly everybody skips entirely, and it is the difference between guessing and actually knowing what your plants need on any given Tuesday morning. Learn to read the plant itself, because the potato will tell you what it needs if you pay attention. A healthy, properly watered potato plant has firm, dark green leaves that hold themselves up nicely in the morning. A mild afternoon droop on a hot day, especially over 90 degrees, is completely normal. The plant is conserving water, and as long as it perks back up by evening, you do not need to do a thing. What you are watching for is morning wilt. If the leaves are limp at 7 in the morning when the soil should be coolest, that plant ran out of water overnight. Time to soak it deeply, even if you watered 2 days ago. On the flip side, if you see lower leaves yellowing from the bottom up while the soil stays consistently wet, that is overwatering, and you need to back off and let things dry out for 2 or 3 days. We visit potato gardens all the time, and we see the same 4 patterns nearly everywhere. The first is the daily splash. Folks come home from work, grab the hose, give the row a quick sprinkle. It feels like you are taking care of things, but it keeps moisture only in the top 2 inches, where the tubers are not, and it creates a wet-dry swing every single day. The fix is to skip days, then soak deeply twice a week, especially during the flowering window. The second is overhead watering with a sprinkler. The leaves get drenched, and within a few weeks, every fungal disease in the county has moved in. The fix is a soaker hose under the straw. Never water from above. The third is the panic soak after a dry spell. You ignore the potatoes for 10 days during a hot stretch in July, then come out and drench the bed for an hour. That sudden gulp after a long dry stretch is exactly what manufactures hollow heart. Researchers from the University of Florida studying this disorder found that rapid tuber growth following a stress period is the single largest cause. The fix is consistency. If you fall behind, water moderately, then again the next day, and ease back into the rhythm. Do not drench. The fourth is watering on a fixed calendar no matter what. Tuesday and Friday, rain or shine. The trouble is, your potato plant does not check a calendar. If you got 2 inches of rain on Wednesday, skip Friday. The fix is the screwdriver test before every scheduled watering. We did every one of those ourselves for years. None of it makes you a bad gardener. It just means nobody showed you the deeper logic of when a potato actually needs a drink. And now for the trick we promised you at the start. The one that we honestly think will change your potato game more than anything else in this whole video. It is called the trench and jug method, and Carl Emery, a third-generation market gardener up in Aroostook County, Maine, showed it to us about 10 years ago. He said his grandfather brought it from a small farm outside Gothenburg, Sweden in 1923. When you plant your potato row in spring, dig a shallow trench down the center, about 3 inches deep and 4 inches wide. Lay your seed potatoes along the bottom and cover with soil as normal. As the plants grow and you do your first hilling, leave a slight depression, almost a long, shallow valley, running the full length of the row. Then every 10 feet or so along that valley, take an empty plastic jug, a milk jug, or a vinegar jug. Drill or poke 6 to 8 pencil tip-sized holes around the bottom third of the jug. Bury the jug right in the valley with the neck sticking out about 1 inch above the soil. Leave the cap off or loose. Now, whenever it is time to water, you fill those jugs. The water seeps out through the holes, runs along the trench under the soil, and goes directly to the tuber zone. No evaporation, no runoff, no wet leaves. You can fill 3 jugs along a 20-foot row in about a minute and walk away. The first season we tried this, we cut our watering time roughly in half and saw almost no hollow heart, almost no growth cracks, and noticeably bigger, smoother potatoes at harvest. It is also a good way to reuse a piece of plastic that would otherwise hit the trash. Now we want to leave you with something you can do right now, tonight, before you even step into the garden. Take a potato out of your pantry, cut it in half lengthwise. If you see a hollow or a brown spot in the middle, that potato grew through a watering swing during its tuber window. You are looking at the damage we have been talking about this whole video. Now you also know what to look for at the grocery store. Show this at the next family supper. Cut a potato open and watch their face when they realize they have been buying and eating watering damage their whole life without knowing it. Water your potatoes with the flowers as your starting gun. Hit them deep, hit them consistent, and hit them on rhythm for those 6 weeks, and the rest of the season will take care of itself. That 80-pound harvest we told you about at the start was not luck, and it was not a special variety. It was just the right water, in the right window, on the right rhythm, the way our grandparents grew them before we forgot. And before you go, there is something you need to see. This is the video YouTube is showing you on the screen.